Hello and welcome to the last part of our You Judge activity, unfolding of the answers to unethical or ethical practices in research in the past. Now, on to the next situation. Several doctors wanted to test the existence of the placebo effect. They offered several office workers a milkshake with 0 calories and 0 milligrams added sugar and tested their ghrelin levels. Their ghrelin relatively went down by 15%. They then asked them to try another milkshake which has 275 calories and 350 milligrams added sugar. Their ghrelin levels dropped by 50% immediately. It turned out that the second milkshake was the same milkshake with 0 calories and 0 milligram added sugar. Well, to put it more simply, placebo effect has something to do with that it's all in the head thing. Okay, like if you're told that this one is like that, then you will feel that way as well. Okay, and this ghrelin is actually a term for, say, hormones in the body that tells you that you're already full. So, is there something wrong with the way the researchers treated the participants? Because they definitely lied about the milkshake that they asked them to try. So is this ethical or unethical? There's no harm done. Believe it or not, this is just a simple experiment. And there was no violation of non-maleficence because the milkshake is just the original milkshake. It's not a poisonous one. There's nothing wrong with the juice that they ingested. So this is just a form of what we call deception in research. You deceive your participant. So there are things that you had to withhold from your participants, not because you wanted to lie to them, but because it's definitely part of the research. Now, to tell you straightforward, deception is and will always be accepted in research. However, you have to observe certain rules, okay? So, there are two types of deception. The first one is omission. The second one is commission. What is the difference? In omission deception, the investigator does not fully inform participants or the participants about some aspects of the study. So they tell the participants that there is a research, and so they carry out the research, but they withhold some information. Okay. Now, commission is that the researcher gives false information entirely about the investigation, either partially or totally. So, for commission deception, from the root word commit, you commit it totally or partially. So, they will be informed that there's a research and this is about that, but in reality, it's really not that kind of research, if you see what I'm talking about here. As for omission, okay, you just omit some parts of the research. Okay, you do not fully lie about it. Okay. However, even though deception is acceptable in research, of course you have to conduct several things after it. Because practically you lied to your participants, okay? Let's just be real about the word deception. Deceived, lied about some things. So, if you happen to use this as a form of data gathering, okay, you have to do three things. It could be debriefing, dehoxing, and desensitizing. When we speak of debriefing, you explain to them what the research really is. Dehoxing is that you tell them what you have actually done, okay, and then desensitizing, you tell the participants that any negativity they had acquired from the study is actually false. Okay? Again, deception is acceptable in research, but you have to do these three things, okay, after deceiving your research participants. Debrief, dehox, and desensitize. Okay, on to our very last example or very last research scenario. One group of high school students receives a newly developed science program that appears to be very effective. Another group receives the science program that has been used for many years and it has been proven to have limited effectiveness. Now, both groups of students gave their consent to participate in the study and no deception was staged. So, you may be thinking, okay, this is somehow unfair for the second half of the students or the participants because they were not given the program which was proven to be effective. So is this ethical or unethical? Well, this actually is very much true, and this happens to experimental research where you establish the effectiveness of something as compared to an existing one. So this is highly ethical and that is fine. Now, it could be a question of justice or beneficence. So it's not fair to the other group, and so the other group will not be able to benefit from the new program. Well, there is what we call a natural state argument, okay, which contends that the untreated group or the group with no special program, okay, was not denied the benefit. They were not denied the benefit, but were just left in their natural state. It was stated there that they have already used it for so many years. That's why it's the natural state, okay? They were not left behind. They were not denied, okay, but they were just left in their natural state. However, if proven effective, the treatment should immediately be effective to all. So, if the researcher had established that the new science program is actually very much effective as compared to the existing one, then there must be a complete intervention implementation, okay, so as to make the other half or the other half of the respondents benefit to or from the actual science program that was experimented before. Okay, so delayed treatment is definitely harmful if it extended for a very long time. Okay, so that's one thing that you also have to consider. If you have found out a very nice solution to a problem and a very effective one, then you must be able to implement it right there and then for the benefit of all. Okay, so let us have this last few slides. Let's see if you can identify what do you think is the common denominator of these three groups of people. Oldies, very, very young children. We also have workers or employees and students. Now, they are actually called the vulnerable population. Let me just move a bit. Now, when we speak of vulnerable population, these are actually people with diminished autonomy, meaning they cannot fully decide for themselves if they want to take part in the research or not. So, students, employees, okay? Yes, employees, even though they are adults, they are also susceptible to coercion. And so, they have, the researchers need to obtain, okay, informed consent from their legal guardian. Now, who is the legal guardian of the employee, for example? The employee is an adult. Why do you need to have consent? The guardian or the general rule is that employees have their bosses. So, you have to obtain informed consent from their bosses. So, what happens if the guardians of the children, the senior citizens, the employees, and the students you were able to obtain the consent from their respective guardians? Do you still need to get their approval? Definitely yes, in the form of an assent. Okay? So, the difference between a consent and an assent, the consent is given to consenting individuals, okay, or the guardians of the vulnerable population, while assent is given to the vulnerable population themselves. That is actually the difference between the two terms here. Now, because we want or justice is part of the principles of research ethics, of course we still want to include these individuals. Okay, justice, everyone should be entitled to participate in a research practice, so nobody gets left behind. All right, so those are the answers to our due judge activity. Hopefully you have gained something from this particular lesson, and so hopefully you are ready to gather your data from your research participants, or should I say human subjects. Thank you again for listening.